Before the sun ever rose above the restless skyline of the city, before buses began coughing black smoke into the air and impatient horns started competing for attention, Tunde was already awake. His alarm clock was not a phone or a digital device placed beside a comfortable bed. It was hunger. It was the kind of hunger that twisted the stomach slowly, like a reminder from life itself that survival was not guaranteed and comfort was a privilege reserved for other people. He slept on a thin foam mattress laid on the cold floor of a small, overcrowded room he shared with 3 other boys who, like him, had come to the city chasing something better than the hands they were dealt at birth. At just 15, his shoulders already carried the weight of a grown man's worries. School fees, rent contribution, food, transport, books, the future. Every morning those responsibilities lined up in his mind like creditors waiting to be paid. He sat up quietly, rubbing sleep from eyes that had not rested enough. Around him, the other boys snored, wrapped in dreams kinder than reality. For a moment he allowed himself to imagine what it must feel like to wake up without fear, to stretch, yawn, and wonder only what to wear, not how to survive. So he stood. He folded his bedding neatly in the corner, washed his face from a plastic bowl of water he had saved the night before, and wore his only pair of trousers, carefully brushed, though age had long faded its color. His white school shirt had been washed so many times it had surrendered its brightness, but he ironed it whenever he could, pressing dignity into fabric that poverty tried to disgrace. Tunde believed something stubborn. He believed that if he kept going, life would one day notice. Outside, dawn yawned open. The city stretched awake. Hawkers arranged goods, bus conductors shouted destinations, motorcycles weaved like angry insects. Somewhere in that chaos, Tunde began his first job of the day. Before school, he worked for a food vendor who needed help washing plates and fetching water. The pay was small, almost insulting, but to Tunde it was breath. Without it, he could not remain in school. Without school, the thin rope tying him to hope would snap. By the time he finished and counted his pay, the sun had climbed higher, spreading heat that promised a long day. He tucked the money deep into his pocket, the way someone might protect a jewel, and began the journey towards school. Children like this, one woman muttered loudly once. They are the ones who grow into thieves, Tunde heard. But he swallowed words the way he swallowed hunger, quietly. As he walked, he rehearsed dreams. One day he would become someone important, a man people respected. A man who would wear clean suits and enter buildings through the front door. He pictured visiting the same street years later, not as a struggling boy, but as proof that endurance could bloom. The thought made him smile. People passed him without noticing, yet inside him lived a future larger than the city itself. Across town, in a world polished by comfort and guarded by tinted glass, another morning unfolded very differently. Adesua, she was mean and looked down on anyone that wasn't up to her class. She hated inconvenience. She hated traffic, disliked slow service, despised excuses, and had perfected the art of looking at people without actually seeing them. Her apartment stood high above the noise, a place where generators hummed faithfully and water ran without argument. Her mirror loved her, and she loved it back. As she adjusted her jewelry, she admired not only her appearance, but the story she believed about herself, that she had risen above ordinary humanity, and therefore owed it nothing.
People are lazy. If they suffer, it is their fault.
Compassion to her was weakness dressed in sentiment. From behind her sunglasses, she watched pedestrians with a mixture of irritation and suspicion. In her mind, danger wore worn-out slippers. Crime had dusty hair. Poverty, she believed, was always reaching for what did not belong to it. If someone brushed too close to her handbag, she tightened her grip. Meanwhile, Tunde hurried along the roadside, mindful of time. Missing the first lesson meant punishment, and punishment meant embarrassment he could not afford. Education was his ladder. He refused to lose grip. He checked the traffic light ahead, the major crossing he had to pass daily. It was always crowded, always impatient. Traders, students, workers, cars fighting for space. A place where stories collided. He inhaled deeply and adjusted the strap of his worn school bag. Just one more road, he told himself. Then class. Then maybe, someday, a different life. He did not know that before the sun slept again, strangers would shout his name without knowing him. But for now, he was only a boy walking to school. And somewhere else, moving toward the same crossing, was a woman who believed she had already seen everything. Morning traffic in the city had a language of its own. Engines growled. Conductors yelled destinations. Street vendors advertised everything from bottled water to cheap sunglasses. Pedestrians gathered at the edge of the highway like runners waiting for permission to dash across danger. And among them stood Tunde. His school bag hung lightly on shoulders that were already tired from the morning's labor. Sweat clung to his temple, tracing slow paths down his face. He wiped it away with the back of his hand and fixed his eyes on the traffic light ahead. Red. He exhaled. Good. That meant he would cross soon. If luck stayed with him, he might still make the first lesson. Around him, bodies pressed closer. Two young men laughing loudly. A mother holding a child by the wrist. Everyone carried somewhere to be. Everyone carried a reason to hurry. Tunde shifted slightly, careful not to touch anyone. Experience had taught him that being poor meant apologizing even for the space your shadow occupied. Then he noticed her. Even without trying, she was impossible to miss. Her clothes were expensive, without shouting. Her perfume floated confidently in the air. She stood straight, chin lifted, eyes hidden behind dark glasses that separated her from the world she walked through. Adesua. She did not look at people. She inspected them, and what she saw around her did not impress her. She moved her handbag slightly to the front of her body and frowned at the crowd, silently blaming them for existing near her. Tunde sensed her discomfort and took a careful step away, trying to create distance. He knew the look. He had lived under it for years. Green blinked for pedestrians. The crowd surged, but before anyone could properly move, Adesua froze. Her hand tightened on her handbag. Her heart skipped. Something, she could not even say what, brushed against her suspicion. A thought without evidence. A fear without witness. She turned sharply. Her eyes landed on Tunde. Poor clothes, sweaty face, cheap bag. Conclusion reached. Hey, she shouted. The suddenness of her voice sliced through the movement around them. A few people stopped. Others slowed. Adesua dug into her handbag dramatically, pushing items aside, breathing faster as if she were discovering disaster.
My money! Where is my money? You!
They blinked confused. He looked around, unsure who she was speaking to. Then her finger rose and pointed directly at him. Yo! She screamed. Thief! The word exploded. It did not float. It did not ask permission. It detonated. Heads turned instantly. Conversations died mid-sentence. The air changed. Curiosity woke up, and with it, judgment. Tunde's heart slammed against his ribs.
Ma? He was standing beside me. Immediately he stood near me. My money disappeared. Thief!
Crowd loved clarity, and accusations provided it cheaply. A murmur began. Chief? He looks like one. Check him. Tunde shook his head rapidly, panic rising like floodwater in his chest.
I didn't take anything. I swear. I just came to cross the road and go to school. Thief!
But fear had already painted him guilty. People moved closer. Hands reached. Voices rose. Adesua stepped back slightly, satisfied that the machine had started. She hugged her back to her chest, breathing hard, playing victim, feeding the fire she had sparked.
I work hard for my money. These street boys think they can just touch me. I didn't touch you.
Tunde shouted, louder now, desperate, his voice cracking under pressure. Search me. I didn't touch you. But the crowd was no longer interested in truth. They were interested in drama. Someone grabbed his shirt. Another person held his arm. Traffic continued moving. Life continued happening. But for Tunde, the world had shrunk to fear, faces, and the terrifying realization that innocence sometimes had no microphone. Adesua watched him struggle, watched the confusion in his eyes, and felt something dangerous, certainty. She believed she was right because she needed to be. Hold him, she commanded. And just like that, strangers obeyed. Tunde's school bag fell to the ground. His books scattered onto the dusty road. The future he had been walking toward minutes ago suddenly felt very far away. Please, he begged, tears rising now.
Please, I didn't steal from you. I swear on my mother.
Adesua pointed again, making sure the spotlight never left him. That's the boy, she insisted. Don't let him run. Run? Tunde could barely breathe. They wanted spectacle. They wanted punishment. They wanted a villain they could hold. And Tunde, with his faded clothes and frightened eyes, fit perfectly. Tunde's mind raced wildly. He thought of all the days he had endured hunger, believing endurance would protect him. Was this how it ended? In the middle of a road, surrounded by strangers who had already chosen his story. His legs buckled. "Bring tire," a voice shouted. The words rolled through the crowd like permission. Tire. Petrol. Finish him. Tunde's heart began to hammer so violently he thought it might break through his chest and run away without him. "No," he screamed, the sound tearing from a place deeper than fear. "Please, I am a student. Check me. I have nothing." But pleading is weak currency in the market of anger. He had heard stories. Everyone had. Stories of mistakes that could not be reversed. Of crowds that forgot faces but remembered excitement. Of families who received news instead of sons. "I'm innocent," he cried, voice breaking apart. "Please." For a moment, just a moment, hesitation flickered in someone's eyes. But Adesua spoke again. "Don't listen to him. Thieves always lie." The hesitation died. They forced the tire toward him. Tunde fought, but fear had stolen his strength. He felt hands pulling, arranging, preparing him like a sacrifice to rage. Tears blurred everything. The sky above seemed too calm for what men were about to do beneath it. So this is how small a life can become, he thought. So this is how easily people disappear. He opened his mouth to shout one last time. And that was when a new voice arrived. "Stop!" It was not louder than the others. But it was different. It carried authority, not excitement. Command, not chaos. The crowd paused, irritated at the interruption. Heads turned. Bodies shifted. The circle loosened just enough for a tall man in a simple shirt to push his way forward. His face held no panic, only focus. "What is going on here?" he demanded. "He stole her money." Several people answered at once, pointing at Tunde as if they had known him all their lives. The man looked at the boy. Really looked. He saw terror, confusion, youth. He saw a child crushed beneath adult fury.
"Did you see him steal it?"
The man asked. Silence stumbled. They looked at one another. "Well, no," someone admitted. "But he was there." The man turned to Adesua.
"Madam, did you see him take your money?"
She hesitated just a fraction. He was the only one close to me," she said, her voice no longer as solid as before. "That is not what I asked," the man replied calmly. "Did you see him take it?" The question hung in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. "No," she whispered. The man nodded slowly, then did something unexpected. He bent down. Right there, in the open street, with everyone watching, he examined the ground near where she had stood earlier. Cars had moved. People had shifted. But sometimes truth, like stubborn grass, survives trampling. He saw it. A fold of cash, partly hidden beneath the edge of the pavement, probably dropped in panic, kicked away in confusion. He picked it up.
"Is this your money?"
Adesua's hand flew to her mouth. The crowd gasped. Everything changed direction at once. The anger that had burned toward Tunde turned suddenly, violently, toward her. "You lied. You almost killed him. Because of your mouth." The man removed the tire. "Enough," he said firmly. "Today, nobody dies." Tunde, sobs tearing out of him like he had been holding the ocean back. His body shook, empty of strength, empty of understanding how close he had come to vanishing. Adesua could not speak. The crown of certainty she wore had shattered at her feet. But the stranger was not finished. He turned back to Tunde, who could barely lift his head. And in his eyes now was something new. Not just rescue. Decision. Tunde could barely remember how he got there. One moment, the world had been collapsing around him. Hands, voices, fire, and fury, and the next, a calm had entered like a tidal wave that swallowed the storm whole. The man who had stopped the mob now knelt beside him, brushing dust from his clothes. His eyes were steady, warm, and not at all intimidating. For the first time in Tunde's life, someone looked at him and saw him. Not his ragged shirt, not the sweat on his face, not the fear trembling through his young body. "You are safe now," the man said simply. Tunde's chest heaved. Words he had been rehearsing for this moment, pleas, protests, explanations vanished. All that remained was trembling, tears, and disbelief. "Safe," Tunde whispered. I, thank you." The man smiled, a quiet, confident curve that seemed to promise the world could still be fair. "Come with me. I'm going to help you." That day, Tunde walked beside the man through the bustling city streets, the crowd having dispersed, murmuring in shock at what had just unfolded. Every step felt surreal. His heart raced, not with fear now, but with wonder. Who was this man? Why did he care? How could one person intervene in a world that had seemed determined to destroy him? The man guided him into a car waiting by the curb. "We're going somewhere safe," he said. Tunde climbed in, still gripping his school bag, the bag that had been tossed into the dust minutes before. He had not realized he had been holding on to it as if it were the last thread keeping him connected to his old life. As they drove, the man spoke gently. "I know it's been rough. I know people have judged you, blamed you, even tried to harm you for nothing. But it ends here." Tunde swallowed. His mind flashed back to the streets, the yelling, the fire, the mob. It felt like a nightmare. And yet, the nightmare had been broken. Why are you helping me?" Tunde asked, voice trembling. "I don't even know you." The man glanced at him. "Because I've seen too many children suffer. Too many lives ruined before they even begin. Today, it stops with you." Weeks passed, though for Tunde they felt like months of wonder. The man, whose name was Mr. Obayora, formally adopted him. Papers were signed, procedures followed, but none of it mattered as much as what Tunde felt deep inside. For the first time he had stability. For the first time he had a home that was not cramped, not filled with hunger, not echoing with fear. He returned to school in clean uniforms, shoes that fit, books that were his own. Confidence had replaced exhaustion, focus had replaced worry. And Tunde, who once feared every glance from a stranger, now walked the halls with quiet dignity, aware of his own worth. The city, which had once felt like a place of danger and judgment, now seemed alive with possibility. Streets he had dodged before became avenues for ambition. Every morning walk to school no longer carried dread, but determination. Yet Tunde never forgot that day at the crossing. He never forgot the mob. He never forgot Adisua's finger-pointing, the shouting, the accusations. And sometimes, when he walked past the place where the crowd had gathered, he thought of her, the woman who had almost ended him, and whispered a silent gratitude to the man who had intervened. Not everyone believes in you, he would think. Not everyone cares. But one person can change everything. Years later, Tunde would grow into a man of respect, education, and influence. He never abandoned the lessons of his youth. He helped other children, worked to protect the innocent, and ensured that the streets which had almost swallowed him alive could offer hope to someone else. And it all began with one person who refused to look away, one hand that reached out, one heart that chose mercy over indifference. Tunde's life had been rewritten. From fear to safety, from hunger to hope, from rejection to love. The boy who had been powerless on the streets now held the power to shape not only his own destiny, but the lives of countless others. This was Tunde's story. A story of survival, courage, and transformation. A story that proves that even in a city full of indifference, one act of compassion can save a life and change the world. Thank you for watching and sharing in this journey. Your love and support keep these stories alive. If you like and drop a comment, your path will be filled with favor and all your dreams will come to pass. Don't forget to subscribe, drop a comment, and tell me where you're watching from. I might just give you a shout out in the next story.